we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm Andrea Summerall. I am with the Region 10 RTOC, and it is my pleasure today to introduce the speaker for this breakout section. The breakout section you're in is the EPA Diesel Emissions Reduction Act, or DERA tribal program. Just make sure you're in the right place. And our speaker today is Rebecca, or Becky Dare, and she is a project officer in the EPA Region 10 Air and Radiation Division in Seattle, Washington. And she's worked for the Environmental Protection Agency for 10 years. She has also worked in many different environmental programs and has participated in community outreach for decades. So take it away.
Well, thank you for coming, especially after lunch. I know lunch is always, right afterwards is always the snooze fest. So we're going to have a lot of fun to talk about the Diesel Emission Reduction Act, or DERA, the tribal program, and also bringing up some more information about the Clean School Bus and funding opportunities. Little background about myself: I used to be more on the regulatory side of issuing permits, and now I get to hand out money. So let's just say that's a lot more fun. So let's get started. Let me see if the slides are working. There we go. My name's Rebecca Dare, and as stated, I've worked with the EPA for over a decade, and I've worked in many community outreach programs. So we are going to go over the Diesel Emission Reduction Act, the Tribal and Insular Area Program overview. We're first going to overview of DERA. I will state it is DERA. It's a lot easier than the mouthful of words of the Diesel Emission Reduction Act. There are 3 different DERA grant programs we'll go over: the Tribal and Insular Area Programs, previous funding years, awards and case studies, and the Tribal Insular Area NOFO. Despite EPA's diesel engine and fuel standards for new engines, nearly 10 million legacy diesel engines are still in use. Diesel engines continue to emit large amounts of NOx, PM 2.5, and other pollutants, which contribute to serious public health problems. The DERA program really focuses on those mobile sources. DERA permits EPA funding to accelerate upgrade and turnover of legacy diesel fleets. In our case study, you'll see how this was used in Alaska. Funding opportunities are provided through an annual appropriation by Congress to DERA and subject to the availability of funds, the quality of applications received, and other considerations. DERA has 3 grant funding programs or opportunities: state grants, national grants, tribal and insular area grants. Reducing emissions from diesel engines is the most important air quality challenge facing our country today. Environmental justice and DERA. DERA prioritizes environmental justice and emission reductions in areas receiving disproportionate impacts from diesel fleets to provide an environment where all people enjoy the same degree of protection from environmental and health hazards. By concentrating on these objectives, the DERA program will continue to prioritize the most vulnerable communities and populations while furthering reduce emissions from diesel engines and the legacy fleets that cause adverse health impacts. State grants. EPA allocates DERA funds to eligible U.S. states and territories for the establishment of diesel emission reduction programs. And each state carries out their DERA program following the DERA rules, or they can retrofit, they can look at ports, they could do non-motor school buses, all of those items to decrease the diesel emissions. National grants program solicits applications for projects that achieve significant reductions in diesel emissions and exposure, particularly from fleets operating in designated poor air quality areas. Tribal and insular areas. The program solicits applications from tribal governments or intertribal consortia, Alaska Native villages, and insular area governments for projects that achieve significant reductions in diesel emissions and exposures. We'll go into more detail there. The United States maintains a government-to-government relationship with 574 federally recognized Native American, Indian tribes, and Alaska Native entities. Recognizing that tribes and territories have various administrative, technical, financial considerations that other national grant programs applicants may not, EPA has established a separate funding opportunity with flexibilities to address the unique considerations of the tribal and insular area applicants, so they can compete for DERA funds separately and implement diesel emission reduction projects. EPA's tribal DERA competition was established in 2014, and the insular area program was added in 2021. Tribes and territories can also apply to the national grant competition. Also, who can apply? Eligible entities include tribal governments or intertribal consortia, and Alaska Native villages or insular area government agencies, which have jurisdiction over transportation or air quality. The tribal and insular area program includes the following variations from the national program. There is a longer application period. There is less stringent eligibility requirements for vehicles and equipment. And there's no mandatory cost share. We've worked really hard to eliminate that mandatory cost share because we recognize that that is an impedance to our tribes and Native villages. Although funds are offered under a single funding opportunity, tribal applicants only compete against other tribal applicants, and insular areas only compete against other insular area applicants. Applications must submit an application package through grants.gov per agency requirements. And as you know, that is always a fun process. The FY22, the Tribal Insular Area DERA program, selected to fully fund 10 tribal cooperative agreements for a total of $7 million. Each year, our tribal DERA program has been increasing in funds. We're expecting it to increase for our FY23 also. Sectors to be covered by fiscal year 22 tribal projects are construction, agriculture, port, stationary, transit, and municipal. Selectees included tribes from EPA Region 2, 9, and 10. The official selection letters were sent out the second week of May. I cannot state who was selected until those funding recommendations are complete. But the interest in the tribal DERA program has been increasing, and really wanted to make sure that you are all aware that these funds are out there to better your air quality in your area. Here's a case study. It's a perfect one that we tend to fall back on, and it shows the difference within tribal areas and the United States, or I'd like to say the East Coast. They tend to be a little bit more populous, and they just think of vehicles. Chalky-Yitzhak Village Council operates a small community powerhouse that supplies power to the entire community of Chalky-Yitzhak. The community is located north of the Arctic Circle, and the powerhouse provides prime power for all residents, the community airport, clinic, and school. This is where all the power comes from. The powerhouse has 3 generators, 2 of which are old Tier 1 and Tier 0 generators. This project replaced 2 Tier 0 generators with a marine jacketed Tier 3 diesel generators that are significantly cleaner and operate more efficiently. In the next NOFO, we're looking to get a waiver for Tier 3 instead of just Tier 3 and Tier 4 up in the Alaska area. In addition to the electricity produced from the generators, the marine jackets send heat to a heat loop, which then heats the nearby school. According to the power plant operator and school maintenance manager, the school's fuel usage dropped by 50% since the new engines were installed. This project is seen as a great success in the eyes of both the school and the community. And anyone that knows that it costs so much money to ship diesel to remote parts of Alaska, this is a benefit across the board for the whole community. This project highlights an example of a successful environmental justice initiative as it achieves significant emissions reduction and improved air quality and public health. As a result, both Beaver and Stevens Village, downriver from Chalky-Gitzik, expressed interest and applied and received funding through the fiscal year 2017 tribal DERA solicitation. I've added a web link so you could see other tribal DERA grants. And let's go here. The next DERA Tribal Insular Area Notice of Funding Opportunity, or NOFO, is anticipated to open fall of 2023. I want to point out that it used to be a request for applications, or an RFA. EPA has changed it to a Notice of Funding Opportunity. For more information on how to apply and for updates on timelines, eligible applicants, and eligible vehicles or technology, please visit, and I put it right over here. And I want to point out Lucida Valeria is our DERA tribal lead. She also works with the Office of Transportation and Air Quality. And my name is Rebecca Durr. I work with Lucida on the tribal DERA projects. And I'm going to ask if there's any questions on tribal DERA before I go on to this clean school bus. Okay, so with the, I will say that the DERA, the tribal DERA grants, they are competitive grants. So that is always something to note. But if you have a question on if your project is something that would qualify, feel free to reach out to Lucida or myself. Going to go over the Clean School Bus program, the CSB program goals, the 2022 CSB rebates program, and some feedback we have received, and the new notice of funding opportunity is open. The overview and the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act Clean School Bus Program. Under Title 11, Clean School Buses and Ferries, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, or bill, provide $5 billion for over 5 years for the replacement of existing school buses with zero emissions and clean school buses. These new clean school bus replacements will produce either low tailpipe emissions compared to the older diesel predecessors. School bus upgrades funded under the program will result in cleaner air on the bus, in the bus loading area, and in the communities in which they operate, really protecting children's health. The first funding opportunity was in 2022, the Clean School Bus Rebate Program. Some of you may have applied. It was a lot and we'll go over the pros and cons of both the grant and 23 was a Clean School Bus Grants Program, April 24th, 2023, and will close on August 22nd of 2023. The Clean School Bus goals: to engage stakeholders in program development, evolve the program as needed based on successes and lessons learned, promote cost parity between bus technologies, allow school districts multiple opportunities to apply for funding, maximize the number of zero emissions and clean buses that get funded, and ensure a broad geographic distribution of awards. EPA is prioritizing applications that will replace buses serving high-need local education agencies, tribal school districts funded by the Bureau of Indian Affairs, or those receiving basic support payments for students living on tribal land and rural areas. EPA is committed to ensuring the Clean School Bus Program delivers on the Biden-Harris administration's Justice 40 initiative to ensure that at least 40% of the benefits of certain federal investments flow to disadvantaged communities. Eligible activities include the replacement of existing internal combustion engine, acronym of ICE, school buses with electric, propane, or compressed natural gas, CNG school buses, as well as the purchase of electric supply equipment, EVSE infrastructure and installations. The 2022 Clean School Bus rebates, the eligible applicants. These might change for the FY 2023, which is not out yet for the rebates. State and local government entities responsible for providing bus service to one or more public school systems, or two to purchase of school buses. Nonprofit school transportation associations, Indian tribes, tribal organizations, or tribally controlled schools responsible for the purchase of school buses or providing school bus service for Bureau of Indian Affairs funded school, and eligible contractors. High-need school districts and low-income areas. School districts listed in the small area income and poverty estimates, SAPE school district estimates for 2020, as having 20% or more students living in poverty. School districts not listed in the SAPE data, including most charter schools, that self-certify as having 20% or more students living in poverty. School districts located in the U.S. Virgin Islands, Guam, American Samoa, and the Commonwealth of Northern Mariana Islands. The rural school districts in 2022, it was school districts identified with local code 43 and 42, rural remote and rural distant by the National Center of Education Statistics. And tribal schools, Bureau of Indian Affairs funded schools and school districts that receive basic support payments for children who reside in Indian lands. In 2022, Clean School Bus rebates, applications, and awards. The applications, nearly 4 billion applications for over 12,000 buses. More than 90% of the requests were for electric buses. The majority of applicants met priority criteria as low income, rural, or tribal. 101 total tribal applicants or applicants prioritized as tribal, and the awards were announced on October 26th. As I stated, this was a lottery process. Everyone was certified whether or not their application met the minimum criteria, and then it was a lottery. EPA awarded up to $965 million in rebates, nearly doubling the amount of the proposed funding. This will fund around 2,600 buses in more than 400 school districts. 27 applicants under the Bureau funded or impact aid prioritization category were awarded rebates that will fund over $70 million for over 200 new buses. And here is some of where the tribal selectees were. The pros and cons with all of this is that in the Pacific Northwest, we actually have really good air quality. So as you can see down in the Nevada, California area, Arizona, they have their air quality is not as clean as ours. So they get a couple more points that way. Some of the feedback we received, the feedback efforts, CSB grants and rebate listening sessions was a way to give back some feedbacks, partnership meetings with EPA staff, and input received through the CSB helpline. The summary of our feedback is that the rebate program worked for a majority of school districts. The gaps in the rebate program: larger fleets were limited by 25 bus maximum, scrappage. Some of the districts don't own their own buses to scrap, and prioritization, different opinions on prioritization, the criteria and funding for non-prioritized school districts. The difference between rebates versus the CSB grants. The rebates, the application process is quick, simple. It's one page, maybe two. The selectee process is determined by a random number generated by a lottery process. And the project period, it's a shorter project period, less support and flexibility in funding provided to the applicants. Grants are longer, more detailed application process. As many of you have filled out grant applications before, you know exactly how detailed and how work intensive the grants are, the grant process. Recipients are selected based on evaluation of the application materials. These are competitive grants, and they are scored. Longer application periods may offer more support for applicants during the project, as well as flexibility in funding, such as providing funds for training and administrative cost, and timing of the project, such as longer project periods to complete the project. The Clean School Bus Grant Program structure. There is the school district subprogram, the eligible entities, state, local government entities, the public charter school districts, and Indian tribes, tribal organizations for tribally controlled schools. There's a minimum of a request for 15 buses and the maximum of 50. Targeting large single fleet turnovers that may have been limited by the 25 bus maximum in the rebate program. This is one of the positives or pros to the grant program structure. And then as a third party subprogram, the eligible entities are nonprofit school transportation associations, eligible contractors, dealers, and private bus fleets. Again, a minimum of 25 buses, maximum of 100 buses, and these applications must include at least 4 school districts to be beneficiaries of the clean school buses that are being purchased. Targeting school districts, particularly small, rural, tribal, or low-income beneficiaries that may benefit from a third-party technical support, grant administration, and coordination. The 2023 Clean School Bus Grant Program Notice of Funding Opportunity is now open. EPA anticipates awarding approximately $400 million in CSB funding under this FY23 NOFO. Subject for availability of funds, the quantity and quality of applications received, and other applicable considerations. Application packages must be submitted electronically to EPA through grants.gov no later than Tuesday, August 22nd, 11:59 Eastern Time. Again, I want to make sure for any of your grants that your sam.gov ID is up to date, because you need to have that sam.gov ID to go with your grants.gov ID. Some important dates. April 24th, the Notice of Funding Opportunity opened up. May 10th, there was a webinar information session. You can watch the recorded version. August 9th, 2 months away, final date for submit questions for the Clean School Bus email. August 22nd at 11:59 Eastern Time, that the NOFO closes, so application deadline. Anticipated notification of selection is November 23rd to January 2024. As you know, that's a quick turnaround. We are working our hardest to make sure that this all happens in this quick time frame. Anticipated awards, February, March 2024. One thing I would like you to think of when you are thinking of clean school buses or electrifying your school bus fleet is Choose the type of electric school bus fleet composition and complete a route analysis, really knowing what your needs are and finding the funding that works best for your needs. You can, if you maybe only want 1 or 2 buses, you can go through the DERA tribal program, the competitive grant. So there's lots of ways to go about these processes. But plan your infrastructure and conduct a depot assessment to calculate upfront and operating costs with your local utility. I cannot stress enough to really work with that local utility. That there has been some surprise costs for school districts within the Northwest with that utility cost. Select and install electric vehicle supply equipment, your EVSE. Finalize your fleet composition and identify a trained personnel needed to operate and maintain your fleet. Utility engagement pledge, and this is a must from the very beginning with any transitioning over to any type of EV to transferring into any EV realm, is really to get that utility engagement, making sure that they are on board to help to lay that infrastructure for your community. A primary barrier to school districts are facing is uncertainty about charging infrastructure, deployment, and how to engage with electric companies. Installation and charging infrastructure can undergo long lead times and require close coordination with the local utility. We've seen this through the pandemic and even within this past year. There's been a lot of the utilities are being taxed on multiple fronts, and just having those conversations up front is very helpful. EPA is working with the National Electric Utility Company organizations to support school districts through the utility pledge that includes facilitating communications between electric providers and school districts, providing technical support and assistance, increasing funding and deployment. Here in Region 10, we are looking at ways that we can help communities connect with their utilities to make sure that it makes the most sense. Information and tools to successfully plan and deploy clean school buses and infrastructure are available. We have lots of different things. EPA and the Joint Office of Energy and Transportation are partnering to provide some of these resources. Again, you can reach out to Clean School Bus Technical Assistance at nrel.gov to ask questions, and you'll receive answers. There are a lot of myths out there for electric school buses, specifically in the Pacific Northwest. We hear them all. One is the ESBs can't operate in hilly terrain. Fact, ESBs may need to use more energy than the conventional bus, but while traveling uphill, but regenerate braking while traveling downhill can capture extra energy to extend the ESB range. Again, you need to do your assessment of your school district and how far you are traveling to make sure if it would work. Myths: the initially high cost of ESB will never be recouped. While the purchase and price of an ESB may be higher, ESBs usually end up costing the fleet less over the lifetime of the bus. They usually make up for their higher purchase costs within 13 years of operation and save over $31,000 over a lifetime of the bus to conventional diesel bus. Operations and maintenance costs, basically. ESBs don't have enough range to cover a full school bus route. Again, depending on your school bus route, most ESBs on the market have a range around 100 miles, which is more than enough to cover most school districts. I am fully aware that some of our remote school districts or rural school districts, 100 miles is actually not all that. That's not enough. Again, this is why we have to do the assessment of our school bus systems. ESBs don't work properly in cold climates. ESBs are still operation in cold climates, but with more energy to operate heaters, which can reduce range. A school district in Utah found that winter conditions caused ESB range to drop around 18%, but about 16% of additional range was gained through regenerative braking. And if you have any questions, Ryan Schlenker is our Clean School Bus lead within the Seattle office. I also work on the program too. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to submit them to me, or you can go to Clean School Bus at EPA.gov, and I'll open it up for any questions in the last 4 minutes.
All right. Thank you so very much there, Rebecca. We're asking people to put questions into the chat box, or if you are attending virtually, if you want to raise your hand, you can ask your question verbally. We have about 10 minutes here for the Q&A session. So let's see, just waiting to see if there's a question that pops into the chat box, or if Rob, if you want to try to unmute and have questions asked on the mic, we can try that. Just we have some connection issues in the room. Okay, looks like we have a question here. How many awards are going to be in this DERA program?
For the Tribal 2022, I believe, let me go back. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I want to say we selected, 10 tribal cooperative agreements for this year. And if you go onto our website, I am going to actually, there's a whole tribal insular area, and it will tell us what we've had. Multi-million dollars awarded grants. Let me see if I can. And this, let me see if I can share the love-hate with share screen. Here we go. I'm going to share this right here. So as you can see, in Region 10, we tend to get the majority of the DERA tribal grants. Lucida has been the one-woman show for the inception of the tribal DERA program. She has worked and fought really hard to make sure that that cost share has been eliminated, no longer applications, and also having the fact of the non-motor, the marine diesel engines to be used. So as you can see, it goes back multiple years. It started in 2014. Actually, I take that back, 2009. So, but this year, 10 have been awarded, and off the top of my mind, I can't remember how many insular areas. I want to say maybe 4, but the official selection letters have went out, but not until the funds have been awarded can we state who received those funds. But I could say Region 2, 9, and 10 received awards this year.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other questions either via the chat box? Just type it in there and we'll read it out for you. Or if you are attending virtually, just raise your hand and we'll allow you to unmute so that you can ask your question verbally. And we have a thank you from the room on that response there.
Well, thank you, everyone. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to any of us on the DERA team. We're here to help, and we'd love to get money out the door. So if you need anything, just reach out.
We do have one more question that just came in.
Perfect.
What makes a great application?
A great application, make sure you answer all of the questions. There are criteria that you are, I don't want to say graded, but you are, your grading criteria or selecting criteria, make sure that you address everything in there. It's well written, you can connect those dots, and just show how it would benefit your community.
All right, thank you. And we have a thank you from the room.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got about got 4 more minutes here on the schedule before we switch over to the next presentation. So if we have any other questions, either raise your hand or just type it into the chat. Oh, actually, I apologize. This is our 5 minutes to turn over now. So thank you so very much, Rebecca, for joining us today. And no additional questions from the room. And the room says thank you as well, Rebecca. Really appreciate everything. And we appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.